Hey, next up, I don't know, Oscar, are you there? Can you hear us? Do you have video?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm here. Video's turning on. Getting to it.
Oscar is somewhere up in the Swiss mountains.
Yeah.
We have not had Oscar on the podcast yet. One day we will when he gets over his shyness and turns 15. He has some great cameras. Oscar, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Your life history has got to be like 3 minutes because you're 8 years old, and
Yeah, exactly.
and some of your extremely impressive cameras. I think you and Lucas do some very similar and interesting work that I've been a real fan of for a long time. Yeah, tell us about yourself.
Okay, so hi, my name's Oscar. I'm a Swiss citizen, originally born Swedish. I'm 20 now. I've grown up here. I now study design in the UK. And for about, I'd say like 5 years soon, I've had like a very strong passion into cameras. And so through that, I've started, building my own cameras, and then that slowly evolved into delving more into the maths behind cameras and such. Um, so yeah,
Oscar,
I
for those
run
who don't
the.
know, what is your cameras?
Sorry, say again. Sorry, Ethan, I missed what you said.
Sorry, for those who don't know, like you're kind of famous. What is your website and what are your cameras?
So yeah, I run the website and the Instagram called Panomicron. I wouldn't say famous. I maybe in the small camera space that we all exist in. Um, I've been essentially through there working on different cameras, and currently, and for the past like 2 years, have been working on homemade rangefinders and rangefinder coupled cameras, um, and some other sort of digital back, well, yeah, cameras with digital backs and sort of technical cameras and such.
Hey,
Working more so.
Joe, you're presenting your screen and Oscar's video. So, Joe, please stop presenting. Hang on a second. Sorry about this.
No worries.
Okay, great. We're back.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want, I can go into present and just show you a couple pictures of my latest camera.
Yeah.
I'll do that then. So, am I in present mode for everybody?
Not yet.
Yeah, there, give me a sec.
Oscar, when you get it to present, maybe before the latest one, you could do just like a quick view of the oxygen or the holmium.
Yeah, I'll run through that. So, okay. So yeah, I've built a couple of cameras. Being the oxygen is sort of the first one I made. That got me. Do I have? Sorry, I'm trying to find my pictures. We'll just go to the holmium instead. This is the holmium, which is a 6x7 rangefinder coupled camera. It has a 50mm f2.8 lens, and it focuses down to roughly coupled about 70 centimeters, and uncoupled it can go to about 50 centimeters. it uses the same sort of rangefinder design as old Zeiss Contax like 1 and 2 cameras, which is sort of has improvements over Leica's design, which was a rotating mirror for the first like Leica 1, 2, and 3, I believe. In a couple pics, there should be some. Oh yeah, the camera also has automatic sort of, well, semi-automatic film indexing, so the frames are correctly spaced, which took a bit of work. That's modeled after how Hasselblad does it, and this is sort of the inside of the camera with you know, a bit too much tape currently, but it's getting there slowly. I'll see if I can find quickly any pictures of the oxygen. That would probably be nice to. Maybe I just have on the website has a little slideshow. I'll go through a couple of them. So that's the oxygen, which passed by pretty quickly, but that's a essentially an X-Pan alternative. It'll shoot the same frame, so 65 by 24 on 35 millimeter film, and it has it has a couple of viewfinders that you can build yourself to boot, optical ones. So yeah, that's mainly the work up till now. Currently, I've been working on some camera-related projects. I've been working to like motorize my collimator and sort of set it up and running so I can measure the focal flange distance on lenses more accurately, which should help me sort of build cameras for other people with odd and old lenses that don't really have any specs out there. And I've been working on a square format 35 millimeter, so it's a 24 by 24 frame, completely electronic camera. So with electronic advance and an electronic shutter.
Wow.
Yeah, that's about it for now.
Hey, what are you using as the shutter, Oscar? Or is that, if that's top secret, you don't have to tell us?
No, I found, so there's a couple of shutters like on AliExpress. They're not super fast. They'll go to about, I've had a friend who's measured them. They go to about 1/100th, maybe 125th if you really push them. They're pretty small though, so they're not going to be replacing anything big. But the camera, the 24 by 24, is going to have a 8mm circular fisheye, and so the rear element on that is pretty tiny. So you can sort of just put it behind and just about get away with it. So that's.
Thank you. Hey, does anybody have any questions? This would be a good time to ask some technical questions for sure.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a huge fan of the stuff you've been doing, and I especially like that you're putting in the work to find this technical information that I think in one of your Facebook posts, or it's not Facebook, Instagram posts, you said you're trying to make information that you don't have to read a 60-year-old book in German to understand.
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate that. But what I was hoping to hear a little bit is about your design process as far as aesthetics. Like, what are your inspirations? You seem to be very intentional about your material choices, your color schemes, and then the general shape and design of your cameras. I wanted to see if you could go a bit into that.
Yeah, sure. So I think in terms of cameras in general, I'll have a tendency more so to focus on the technical aspects and then sort of like make them as small as possible and shrink wrap the form around it as far as you can take that principle. I've started experimenting more with sort of ornamental design in some of them. One of my cameras, the 6x9, has like a more ornamental back, and the next version of my technical camera is going to be a bit more ornamented as well, simply because I mean, the constraints of like modern machining and or 3D printing are are different than they used to be, and so there's no real need for things to look the way they usually have. So you can sort of change things up in a dramatic way. I find that quite fun. In terms of like the aesthetic design of it, I tend to I'd say like the cameras are a lot more they're a lot more like there's a lot more like like chamfers and edges on them than my sort of other design work, simply because it's sort of you can cut down on some material and where it's not needed, and just sort of like make things a tiny bit more interesting than just a plastic shell.
And
I don't know how answers it, but
what is your, so you're in design school right now?
Yeah.
Industrial design or
product design technically, but
product design. Okay. Well, and so I imagine you have to do just a whole plethora of different projects, but do you try and center most of your design around cameras? Is that what you want to do in the long run?
I don't know. I feel like most of my other projects, I don't center them around cameras at all. I quite like. I mean, I just like learning new things, and so I'll go and design things that are a bit more different. I'm not sure I want to go into like working with cameras full time. I very much enjoy it as a hobby, but it's sort of like the constraints of having to deliver everything on time and do all the things are a lot different. It makes the conditions in which you're making the things a lot different. I've had some experience of I've interned at Hasselblad very shortly for about 2 months.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Wow. And then I've interned on the West Coast in LA at at a cinema rehousing company. And those were very fun experiences, but it forces you to like see how you survive in the camera market sort of competitively, and it's a difficult task for sure.
It's not fun, I would say. It loses a
lot
of its
fun and a lot more work.
Yeah. No, I definitely like. I personally made the distinction of I don't want my career to be making cameras. And I think that was a valuable choice for me.
Yeah.
So
well, it was like I've been doing this for like pretty much 5 years, and I didn't feel like I wanted to limit myself to just doing this for the rest of my life. I feel like that's a bit just an early choice for me to make. I feel like there's still a lot of things I could do and a lot of things I could explore, so I might as well try different things.
Of course.
One of the things about design in general, excuse me, is that the most exciting project is the next one. So, if the next one is, is always going to be a camera, there's a little bit maybe less surprise in it.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I feel for me, it's like the interesting thing is like the learning process, which is why like every camera I've tried to make sort of does something different or something new. At least from my standpoint, it's sort of like it was for just making a camera that worked, and then trying to get a rangefinder, and then doing things like CNC, like learning how that works, and sort of exploring new mediums every time, because that keeps it sort of fresh. It gives you opportunities to learn new things.
And you don't seem to shy away from the hard stuff. I think you were the first person I've seen that has, like, your first camera had a helicoil and a rangefinder, did it not?
The first one didn't have a rangefinder. It was just a helicoil.
It did. Okay.
Yeah. The first ones were just like sandwiching two old parts together, and then the oxygen it used like the M65 mount, which I don't know how many people were using before, but I sort of like I just sort of like found it somewhere, and I was like, okay, it seems like it works pretty well. Let's go with this. And then progressing towards in the holmium, sort of like right now, that's been the pinnacle of what I've like found and researched. Sort of has a full on like cam based focusing system, and then full working rangefinder. But I feel like I definitely
quite amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I quite enjoy like the the hard stuff keeps me interested. Like the more obscure and the more like nobody's bothered to look into this, the more it's like, oh, okay, well, why is this so difficult, and what can we find here?
Yeah.
But yeah. So definitely, if other people wanna, I'll take this moment to just shout out on my website. There's a header for sort of the research that I've done and sort of formulas to make your own like optical viewfinders or rangefinders and all that, and sort of the math behind it if that's any interest. But there's the basic formula is to just make it work if that's more your style.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna be relying on some information very heavily because that's my next camera basically. I'm gonna be
Awesome.
using all of your work, and so I really appreciate it.
Looking forward to it.
I don't know how the two of you have not met before, but you should.
Well, we've chit-chatted on the
we've
internet.
chit-chatted. I wanted Lucas to make me some cams and stuff for the Holmium to replace some of the plastic parts, but then sort of Corona hit and we were sort of busy. Like doing
well, yeah, you messaged me like right when I moved, and I still haven't got back. So, but I am getting it within the next few weeks. So if you still need parts, just let me know.
Yeah, I might take you up on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I've done some. I'll be writing some at least one new article pretty soon on that sort of blog page about how you should sort of there's different ways you can put your cam follower for the rangefinder that like drastically impact how and which lenses you'll be able to use or how easily you'll be able to couple them.
I'm curious, is this information that you discovered, or is this kind of documented?
I haven't found it written anywhere, but it's sort of like if you look at the cameras really closely, you'll find like why they made the choice and how they made them. It's like the Leica one, like Leica cams travel, they cross the center line of where the cam rotates twice, which means that they have to have to couple other lenses that aren't the nominal focal length. They have to rotate. They have to put a cam that's like that rotates and that's shaped. So you have to couple it to the rotation of the lens. Whereas if you do what Mamiya does, which means like it only crosses that path once, like it covers a lot bigger distance when it rotates, then you can use you can just make it coupled to like how the lens moves forward and back, but just have it shaped instead. Just like an angle, and because it's moving, it'll like change how it moves.
And my design's much more based because the
what's up?
The Leica, because it crosses that center line, right? It requires another like sort of reversing pivot, which while is clever and can make things small, I can't make things small out of plastic anyway.
Yeah.
Just adds enough play that it becomes just totally impossible to do out of plastic. Maybe you'll figure it out.
No, yeah. So I definitely like if you're gonna, I'll send you like a little breakdown if you want, if just like in writing to make it a bit easier. But yeah, it's just like it's on how you place your cam and how you design it. It'll make like if you want to change lenses at some point, it'll make it like way easier.
I like how simple the Mamiya Press rangefinder is in it. It's actually much easier to adjust because there's only one real variable to deal with in the cam.
So I'm just curious, what like do you have an eventual goal with your camera design? Because I mean you weren't here when I was talking about my projects, but I have like a definitive, like this is what I want to achieve, and that everything I'm doing is working up to this. Do you have a same kind of goal, or are you more in the exploration right now?
I don't know. I think it would be really cool at some point to be able to make like small, like very small limited batches of cameras that I can like, baby and spend a long time making like perfect, and then making like 5 of them and then moving on to something else. I find that'd be nice, but there's no like, I've just more so been pushed by the curiosity of how these things work to push further and explore. In the end, like I'd like to make a camera that I can use as like a daily driver and make it work exactly like I want.
And
But
Oscar, if you had to pick a camera on the market right now that is closest to that camera, what would it be?
I don't know. I have quite a few cameras that I play around with. I'd say, I mean, like the eventual goal for the Holmium was to be sort of like a mechanical Mamiya 7, just because I thought they were really nice cameras, and with it was good lenses, and they seemed to produce like excellent images. So I just wanted to like replicate that. It's hard picking a favorite camera, or that you always use. It's like it's very much situational in how I do my photography. So some cameras and some lenses work perfect for one photo, and sometimes they don't work at all.
Oscar gave a real politician answer there, but I think you know what he's working towards.
Yeah, I think eventually a Mamiya 7 clone is probably what I'm aiming for.
I think that's very admirable. I'm doing the Leica M6 clone, so if you do the 7 clone, we can get the market covered.
Yeah, exactly. You corner the camera market, like the very niche,
yeah,
high-end camera market. That'll be nice.
We just now need a SLR clone, like an RB67 clone.
Yeah, why aren't many people making SLRs? I wonder, because I have seen someone on YouTube. Not YouTube.
I was wondering that right now.
Well, because you got to make the whole mirror assembly.
Cheap, and they're hard.
But is it harder? Is it really harder than a rangefinder? I wonder.
Yes.
It is. Okay.
It's because of the speed involved, right? Like it's just you have to slap up that mirror so incredibly fast to be able to take the picture, and you have to sync those two things. And then when they go down, they have to go down at different rates because obviously they're not correct in relation to each other. It's just a big hassle.
Your moving component amount goes up exponentially.
My dream homemade camera would be to make a 4x5 SLR like the RBs, the graphics RBs. That would be my dream homemade camera.
Like that guy.
Yes, like that guy.
Yeah, so the answer really for me to doing that is just to keep it simple by having a manual mirror, and not needing to be quite so fast.
Yeah, I was wondering, like you're saying, like doing up mirror and manually moving it up, then taking the shot with the focal plane shutter. But I haven't dived into that.
The Lomo constructor uses that theory, that style, that design, where
it can be super simple. It can just be a lever that you press, and then the mirror just drops back by gravity. There's a couple other ideas too. I also want to make one with a very shallow range flange back distance. The biggest problem I have with SLRs is how far the lens has to be from the film. And so I've been thinking about making one with just using a small mirror, and you don't see the whole field of view. You just see enough to focus. And then you can get a much shorter camera.
But then you sort of have the problem of if you put it centrally, then you still have to have arms that go down to the middle, right, and then flip it up, or you just see the top part of the image.
Okay, but
so I'm actually thinking more about something that is like a periscope that drops down vertically and then rises back up. The whole assembly goes up and down. Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys have seen this, but the Gallon Flex has a unique solution to that, and I think the quick answer why nobody's making SLRs is they're still cheap, plentiful, and good, and made out of metal. But this uses an SLR where the mirror is right up against the lens. It's behind this plate instead of back here. And instead of flipping up, it actually just slides side to side with the guillotine shutter. So I can cock it and then fire it. Let's see. So I think you can see kind of through the lens. And the mirror and the shutter are both on the same set of blades that move like that at an angle, like right up here. And by keeping it close to the lens, they're able to make it very small. I think that's like a very clever bit that Peter Gallon did. That being said, it's the most awkward camera anywhere but a studio. I would not follow that design pattern for, you know, shooting what I like to shoot.
I bet it could be smoothed out a bit, though. I like that idea a lot. The small mirror, I think, is really a good idea.
And I had just one more question. I'm sorry to hog so much of your time, but
No worries.
You're from Switzerland. I imagine.
Yep.
Like clock and watchmaking is really big, an important part of the history of Switzerland. I'm a big fan of horology. Do you plan on ever, like, I know copal shutters are just beautifully made mechanisms. Have you ever thought of getting into that whole, taking the dive into that whole world?
I mean, yeah, like,
Yeah.
I mean, yes, totally. That's like, it's a big endeavor. I feel like I mean, having the experience of having just like been at Hasselblad for a little while, I've seen how like their shutters work, like their new ones. So I at least have like some idea of how to do it in like a more modern way if you really wanted to. It's
Step one, $1 million worth of machines.
Yeah, exactly. And 8 years time or whatever it took them. It's like it's a big endeavor. But definitely at some point, I'll try to make something like similar to it at least, because we like eventually like buying a bunch of copal shutters and remounting lenses into it is just not sustainable in the end. Like you just
Of course.
can't hog up everybody's copal shutters. So we'll find an option. I don't know how quickly it'll happen, but at some point.
It's on your radar, it sounds like.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, I mean, there's enough clever people like in the camera making game for it to feel competitive at least.
Yeah.
I remember when Ethan was posting on his Instagram a while back, he put like, it was like probably like a year or two back, but he was posting like some things about you were making like the focal plane shutter 3D printed one. And I was just like, I saw that and I got like so like riled up. I was like, I gotta figure this out now. I gotta know how it works because I didn't know. I was just like, I spent like ages trying to figure out all these pieces of work to be like.
So is that all it takes? If I make an Instagram post about making a copal shutter, will that get you fired up enough to?
Well, the thing is, not only do you have to build a shutter, you have to build a shutter that one doesn't break every 25 shots. And 2 fits into a camera, right? My shutter was like this big.
Yeah, exactly.
6x7.
Well, if anyone can do it, it's the Swiss. So I think we got the right guy.
I'm all for some like friendly competitiveness. If you're trying as well, we'll figure something out.
I'm doing a film plane shutter, not a. I don't even want to look at a copal shutter. Those things look. I mean, I've opened a few up and I just get nauseated.
There's some, maybe later on I will share some of my copal shutter designs, which again, like your film plane shutter, I don't have any slow speed escapements. But it's actually maybe simpler, but my shutter has like a 75 millimeter opening for a large format lens. And the shutter housing is about, that big. It's like 8 to 12 inches. But like, if you're willing to go big, the copal shutter is not as complicated as you might think. It's just like a lot of rotational patterns of the same. Maybe we'll later on get to SolidWorks PC.
It's about it's just as much about making something smooth and efficient, basically, so it doesn't jam. I think that's the key point. And because the concepts, like you said, the concepts are surprisingly simple. It's just making it work and making it work every time. That's the tricky part.
Like we have very different, like for you, it's almost easier because you are willing to machine. But for me, it's on one hand easier because I don't have to do the work of machining, but it's also harder because I have to figure out how to make a smooth movement with unsmooth parts.
Yes, exactly. That's.
If you guys are interested, I'll send you. I'll be back home in a little while, but I have in some of the old German books from the 60s, there's some like designs and some information about shutters that's quite useful, I think. That could be practical, even for focal plane ones, and just like just timings and stuff like that. And there's like some graphs that might be helpful for.
Yeah, I mean, I'll read them up. I'm really excited for any kind of information like that. And I will say that I am getting a watchmaker's lathe and all that good stuff. So
nice.
the race is on to make I'm making, my first goal is make a shutter, then make the slow speed escapement for the shutter, which is basically a complicated watch movement.
Yeah.
And if you can do the Copal shutter before me, I'll tilt my hat.
I mean, I'm looking to getting a desktop CNC like you have, but a different model. But I'm looking into it, setting up all my money and being like, getting this going. I can finally make some smaller parts
for you. Your camera just needs to be about like that big.
Just like the shutter, the shutter spools are this big for the.
Oh, the Copal one.
Oh, the Copal, yeah.
The rotors on it are 7.5 inches in diameter.
But it actually works though with the 3D printed parts.
I have a model of half of it. So the way I
in theory.
So I have a model that will open, right? But then instead of making one that opens and closes, I have two, and they trigger each other, very similar to a focal plane shutter, where one opens and at some point in its rotor rotation, it trips the closing shutter, and then those can be tensioned for different speeds, which just gives you high speed. I have a friend who actually built one that is just controlled by solenoids, and I built him like just a
I've seen.
Yeah.
But that does not make a product if it has to go through FCC testing and requires power supply and solenoid triggers. But if you're willing to use electronics, the Childs Clement has already built a pretty slick Copal shutter that's all water jet cut and used to two solenoids to trigger the opener and the closer.
And I suppose also that gives you a tremendous amount of accuracy potential as well, where needed. Whereas any sort of clockwork is going to be much more difficult to get the timing right.
Yeah, I mean, you can go down to microsecond accuracy, even on like mechanical things with an Arduino. But I don't know. I've been trying to resist and go the 18th century Swiss clockwork style, but out of garbage plastics.
Well, I wonder if there's a middle ground. Like, do you need to make the entire, like, for instance, on a rangefinder, what components are critical in the function that need to be machined? Like, could you just machine one component and have a working rangefinder and have everything else 3D printed?
Resin printer. I haven't tried it yet, but I think the important parts are the mirror pivot and or cam, right, and the cam follow. And then even just like, so long as you build in adjustments to the helical mirror, you could make that out of garbage. It's the cam follower and the pivot that's on, or if you have like a flexed cam follower like an Leica, the pivot hole in have to be super precise. But I forget who said it to me. If you can't make it perfect, make it adjustable. And so the Holmium has a lot of screw adjusters, which was extremely clever. And I think like ultimately, if you make it a little bit larger and build in adjustments for things like pivot arm length, you might be able to do it less precisely.
Good. Yeah, I think part of good design is not just necessarily like relying on all high-end components, but figuring out what components you can cheap out on when needed. I think that's an important concept.
I assume that's a lot of your job right now.
Yes, it is. Well, actually, where I am, everything is as expensive as possible.
Yeah, I'd say in terms of for the Holmium, like even the cam and the cam follower, like out of even if like FDM printed plastic, it does like pretty fine. Like it's not like in terms of accuracy, it's not bad actually. Really like you can build in. The only thing like I mean, FDM's a bit less tolerant than like I don't know like MFJ industrial printed nylon, so just like tapping screws straight into it. It doesn't like it quite as much. So like, but yeah, you just have to build in adjustments. Mainly, there's two that matter. It's just your vertical adjustment on your mirror, and then your horizontal adjustment. You build it into your like mirror arm.
The one that I've been thinking about is like the concentricity of the rotating mirror cam, and like I have not come up with a scheme yet. I haven't put my brain to it very long, but an adjustable concentricity other than disassemble, file, put it back together, like a more screw adjuster type stuff. Might be.
I could probably do some like put into like one of the like ray tracers and tell you and like run some simulations and see what the actual like effect that would have. I don't think it would be
making a ray tracer and drawing what works.
I just don't think that error is particularly massive. On the Holmium, they ride on like tiny 3mm by 1mm bearings. But I don't think it's really necessary. Looking at other cameras stuff like that, it just seems sort of overkill. The next version just sort of rides on like a machined, like stud.
Let me tell you, even riding on resin printed studs,
yeah, they do fine usually.
You need metal pins for sure.
Well, I'm very excited to see what you come up with next. I'm going to eagerly await.
Thank you.